So I'm not sure where it cut off. So what I did is I distributed that, and then I boxed this out, and I got 4x cubed plus 21x squared minus 18x. And what I was saying before is that, and that's why it looks circled, is that how do you know I'm right? I can take this, graph it in Desmos, take this, graph it in Desmos, and they should be right on top of each other. How do I check this? Graph this, put it in Desmos, graph this, put it in Desmos. They should be right on top of each other. And when I graph it, I should be able to touch the x-axis, and it should cross at 5 1/2. Okay? All right. So my roots are positive 5i and negative 5i. So if it's, I'm going to rewrite that so that you can see it. And just because it might be easier to see it. You notice when it was negative 3, we did the opposite. When it was positive 4, we did the opposite. So when it's imaginary, you do the opposite. When it's imaginary, you do the opposite. And then you go, oh, cool, factored form. Factored form implies that you factored, but you can't factor imaginary numbers. So technically, factored form will just be standard form because you cannot factor it. Okay? I'm going to box this out. We've practiced boxing. And you end up with y equals x squared plus 25. And some of you go, you can box this out yourself. Okay, we've done a lot of practice with boxing. And some of you go, well, how do you know you're right? Graph it in Desmos. Okay, well, I want to show you just to kind of get a reference. If I was to get the roots like we did on the previous page, we set it equal to 0, right? Or correct. So then what would I do? Move the 25 over. Square root, square root. Anytime you see a negative, I. What's the square root of 25? 5. Anytime you square root, plus or minus. Plus or minus 5i is what you got. I want to show you a little hint and see if you get it. If my roots are plus or minus 5, I know, I'm going to zoom this out a little bit, that my polynomial is x squared minus 25. If it's plus or minus 5i, it's plus 25. If it's plus or minus 8, do you think you know what it is? Y equals x squared minus 64. What if it's plus or minus 8i? Well, you can't take the square root. There's no sum of squares. There's only difference of squares. So that'd be x squared plus 64. And some of you go, okay, I get it. Okay. Well, what if you had y equals x squared plus 64x? What's that going to be? That's going to be 0 and negative 64. Because what do they have the same? They have an x. Set it equal to 0, set it equal to 0. Knowing how to factor and noticing the difference is important. If I lost you on this trick, don't worry about it. If you see it, great. It's a great way to check your answers. Okay? Without having to use Desmos. Okay. So now let's look here. Oh, this is, 2 imaginary roots, which means it's a quadratic, which means it's squared. Okay? So this one we have, now this is all one thing. So it would be x, and it's positive, right? 3 minus I. So it would be x minus 3 minus I. This is 3 plus I. So that would be x minus, parentheses, 3 plus I. And this is x minus 2. I can do this one on the other page, okay? So now, technically, I have 3 roots. 2 of them are imaginary, so I have 2 imaginary roots and 1 real root. Okay? So one way I would start this is I wouldn't multiply an imaginary times a real and then get another imaginary times that. I wouldn't even acknowledge that. I'm going to simplify this hot mess. Anytime you have a negative, change the signs of everything to the right. Change the signs of everything to the right. So this is really x minus 3 plus I. And this is really x minus 3 minus I. So if I'm going to box this out, which I'd rather take up more space to let you see it. This is x minus 3 plus I. X minus 3 minus I. This looks like a good quiz question. X squared minus 3x minus ix minus 3x plus 9 plus 3i. And some of you go, what do you put first, the I or the x? Well, you put the I first, but if you're not sure, just make sure you're consistently the same so that you can see how things are similar and different. Like, see how we go plus ix? Don't put xi, or you won't see how these two are similar. Plus ix minus 3i minus I squared. All right, so let's go across here. I have the x squared, done. Negative 3x and negative 3x is negative 6x, so those are done. Negative ix and positive ix are gone. I have plus 3i and minus 3i. All the i's need to be gone, by the way, because when you're getting a polynomial, there's no I in it. You don't put that in Desmos. And then negative I squares means negative of negative 1, which is positive 1, plus 9 is 10. It almost looked like it was completing the square with the 9, but then that threw it there. Y equals. Okay, so that means, oops, sorry, not y equals, because that means this is x squared minus 6x plus 10 times x minus 2. So now, I got to do it again. This is a good workout. And some people go, well, when am I going to use this? No one's probably going to ask you. Well, that's not true, nobody. But not many people are going to say, hey, can you multiply this polynomial? But if you can't stay organized, and you can't stay focused, and you can't stay positive, and you're giving up already, then how are you going to handle anything? Okay, this doesn't, not like it doesn't matter, but this isn't going to kill you if you get it wrong. Okay, this isn't going to make a monumental mess if you make a mistake. So, no pressure. X cubed minus 8x squared. Oops, I messed up. That's 12x. Plus 22x minus 20. Y equals. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to graph it on Desmos and see if it's actually right. Hold on. So I graphed it on Desmos. I saw that it was a cubic. 1, 2, 3. So it kind of does like a loose graph like this. I see that it has one real root at 2. And if you look back here, where is my problem? Hot mess a little bit. My real root, that's my one real root, is 2. Can I check my imaginary answers? I can't really check my imaginary answers because they are imaginary. Okay? But I can see that it doesn't cross the x-axis at all. So what does that mean? All right. What is my answer in factored form? Here, since I had imaginaries, I couldn't put that in factored form. So this can't be factored form, but this is factored form. Because that's as much as I could factor it. Oops, 10. And then multiplied out, y equals x cubed minus 8x squared plus 22x minus 20. Okay? All right. I know this is taking a little bit longer, but it's okay. We can handle it. All right, this one. The roots are 1 plus the square root of 6 and 1 minus the square root of 6. I have 2 roots. Are they real or imaginary? I can really plug this into the calculator. It's a decimal, but I can really do it. So that would be 2 real roots. They just happen to be decimals. Okay? So that means that I'm going to rewrite this. I'm going to do this bigger here. This one is x minus 1 plus rad 6. This one is x minus 1 minus rad 6. And then remember, let me get my pencil. What do we do when we have a minus? Change the signs of everything to the right. Change the signs of everything to the right. So I'm going to be writing this as x minus 1 minus rad 6, x minus 1 plus rad 6. Do I have any imaginaries? No. Do I have square roots? Yes. Do you see square roots in factored form? No. So will stuff be eliminated? Yes. X minus 1 minus rad 6, x minus 1 plus rad 6. I'm putting the 1 for my own sanity. The x goes first, but if it makes you feel safer, put it at the end, as long as you're consistent. Okay? If you put it at the end, though, the problem is it looks like the square root is with the x. If you're struggling and you go, Miss Rifkin, I'm having a hard time boxing, then you need to talk to me about it. If you don't talk to me, I can't help you. Square root of 6 times the square root of 6 is the square root of 36, which is 6. Okay? Now, let's start from the beginning. X squared. Put that here. X squared. Minus 1x minus 1x minus 2x. Okay. Plus x rad 6 minus x rad 6. Gone. Plus square root of 6 minus square root of 6. Do you notice that? All the square roots are gone. And now 1 minus 6, negative 5. So, in factored form, can you factor that? No, there are no numbers that multiply to get 5 and add to 2. So you would have to either do the quadratic formula or complete the square. So factored form and standard form, same thing. All right, I'm going to remind you, if I was to put this, if I wanted to find the zeros, what would I do? I can either do the quadratic formula or I can complete the square. I think completing the square is easier. Move the 5 over, make a box, cut it in half. X, negative 1, 1. That's my magic 1, plus 1, plus 1. Then I take this. And I'm doing this quickly because for a lot of you, this is review. For some of you, you appreciate the review. Okay, square root, plus or minus rad 6 equals x minus 1. Add 1. 1 plus or minus rad 6. Hey, what do you know? 1 plus or minus rad 6. Okay? I'm going to do the homework in the next video.